And we'll get started. So thank you everyone for coming out to our info session tonight about our very exciting event we're putting on in collaboration with Eli Lilly, the Genetic Medicine Grand Challenge, which is in addition to their platinum sponsorship of our activator program. So my name is Andrew. I am a Vice President of Financial Strategy for Nucleate at our HQ level, so help manage some of our partnerships and sponsorships at the national level, such as this relationship with Lilly. So the reason that you all came out to this info session tonight is to learn a little more about our event that we're putting on here with Lilly, the Genetic Medicine Grand Challenge. And I really intend for this to be mostly a Q&A session, only a very short 2 or 3 minute presentation here, and then times for questions. So definitely have your questions prepared. You can put them in the chat. I also have Caroline here with me. She's also part of our HQ leadership, so she'll be able to help manage some of those questions coming in through the chat. All right. So the very first thing, looks like I'm actually a few slides ahead of myself here. The very first thing I wanted to announce is that we are actually changing the deadline. We're extending the deadline of this application 2 weeks out to March 15th. So for those of you who are interested in applying, but are just now learning about the application, you don't have to scramble to get everything in by that March 1st deadline. We're giving an extra 2 weeks to March 15th. So you have a little more time to get your application materials together. We hope that the application was not or is not too intensive. So you'll just have to, provide a pitch deck and a couple explanations of your technology, but intending for it to be no more than a 30 minute application at most. So just a little overview of this program, in case you haven't read up on it too much. We are looking for anyone who has a technology with a broad application of genetic medicine. So we sort of have 4 broad categories within this challenge: genome engineering, regenerative medicine, delivery and manufacturing, and then an open umbrella category. So if you think that your technology in any way could be applied to concepts of genetic medicine, we encourage you to apply. So semi-finalist teams, after the application deadline, we will reach out to selected selected teams that will then go through a short interview process, and semi-finalist teams selected from that pool will then be selected to attend a 2-day event in Indianapolis, all travel expenses covered. You get to travel to Lilly HQ, meet with investors, top executives, and scientists from Lilly. The final agenda for this event is not yet set, but is going to include things such as a poster session, open networking sessions, some roundtable discussions where there will be discussions with Lilly representatives about topics such as strategies for partnering with pharma, et cetera. This is all going to culminate in a pitch competition on the second day, in which 3 $100,000 grant prizes will be awarded, no strings attached. So one of the very common questions we've been getting about this is, does competing for this money in any way obligate any equity to Lilly? No first rights of refusal, nothing like that. So there are no strings attached to this prize. It is simply a grant prize that is to be used for furthering the development of your technology. As I mentioned before, tried to keep a relatively simple application format, nearly identical to our activator application. So if you are already a participant in our activator program, which I know some of you are, then you can reuse a lot of those same materials. I see one question in the chat. Does the deadline extension extend to all applicants or just Nucleate applicants? So that deadline extension is for everyone. That's another important thing I should mention. So there's absolutely no relationship with Nucleate necessary to apply, including that deadline extension. And then another question coming through the chat. Does a bio tool / DNA sequencing reagent startup eligible to apply? Does this consider under the umbrella category? So yeah, I mean, that's really going to be up to you in the way that you pitch your technology in the application. It sounds like could definitely be applicable. One thing that I will discuss is that Lilly made it clear there are a few categories that they are not accepting applications for. So that would be anything vaccine technology, infectious disease, and oncology, with the exception of unique delivery methods for specific tissues or sites, et cetera. So if it's a delivery technology, then related to oncology, you can still apply with that. But other than that, I encourage you to apply, especially based off of this question. I bet there would be some way you could think that would apply to genetic medicine. So a few other restrictions, which I imagine are going to be the majority of the questions people may have here. One is that the research project and development of the project must be conducted in the US. I should mention that these are guidelines that we have received from Lilly and not set by us. So if you have any very specific questions about these deadlines, which I've gotten some great questions about this, I'll have to coordinate with Lilly directly. And this is also a new program for Lilly, and they're building out their compliance related to this program as well. So I apologize in advance if I don't always have a very speedy answer for some eligibility questions, but I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible after discussing with Lilly. A few other ones, participants cannot be direct relatives of any current Lilly or any subsidiary company of Lilly employees, and participants cannot be current healthcare providers. So with that, I'll just go to my summary slide here. As I mentioned, it's due on March 15th. You can apply at lilly.nucleate.xyz. My email is there at the bottom, anm247@cornell.edu. And I'm also coordinating this effort with Oliver Dodd, one of the co-presidents of Nucleate. You can contact him at oliver@nucleate.xyz. So that's all I have in terms of prepared materials. So I noticed some more questions coming in through the chat, but also feel free to raise your hand and you can unmute yourself and ask your question that way as well. But I will start going through a couple of these questions in the chat, and then I'll get to you, Victoria. So do Nucleate projects from the UK branch are able to apply if the process starting the project and no operations running? So in terms of applications outside the US, this has been a question we've received a lot. One thing we can categorically say is that if your research is being developed outside of the US, you will not be eligible for the financial award. That being said, I'm working with Lilly's legal team right now to figure out if the extent to which teams outside the US would still be eligible to be semi-finalists that can travel to the event to network with Lilly and gain that experience. With that being said, that's one of the questions that unfortunately I'll have to get back to you with further details about eligibility to actually attend the event. You will not be eligible for the money, but yeah, I'll have to follow up with more information there. Assume application should contain only non-confidential material, but is it going to be shared beyond Lilly? So no, any materials shared are just going to be between our team here at Nucleate as well as Lilly. But yes, very importantly that this is non-confidential material. So anything that you mark as confidential, we won't be able to review and we won't be able to consider your application for review in this process. Can you define, oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Victoria, you had a question with your hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for a nice presentation. I just had a quick question regarding the teams. Do we have to have the team formed? And if so, do we need a certain level of scientists being there, you know, or like some specific requirements for the level of the team members?
No. So it is fully okay if you're coming with a team of complete academic trainees. all the way to inclusion of a PI on this project. So as long as there's not a current healthcare provider on the team, you'll be eligible. In terms of having the team built, there would be no issue with being a solo applicant as well. But I can say that one of the things that is under consideration here is the potential commercial success of the company. So if you already do have a team in place and sort of have a business plan moving forward as to how you're progressing the technology related to the development of your company, that would be favorable on the application. But in no way is that a restriction from applying or participating.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Can I define genetic medicine in the context of this program? So yes, I realize that's a very broad category or a very broad term. I think these 4 categories are as specific as I can get. This is wording that was worked on with Lilly. So anything related to genetic engineering, generative medicine, a delivery or manufacturing technology, as well as, of course, that open umbrella category. So as long as it's not a technology related to oncology, besides delivery technology, infectious disease, or vaccine development, I encourage you to apply, and we'll work through the applications. Mentioned that oncology projects will not be considered, or is it just delivery products for oncology? Projects that are developing a technology for oncology in terms of things like the actual treatment or drug for cancer, Lilly won't be considering for this grant. The exception to not considering oncology projects is if your technology is specifically for therapeutic delivery. So a novel delivery technology, I believe Lilly's still interested, because then that could potentially be applied to some form of genetic medicine. Yes. All this being said, we're still working through some of the details with Lilly. As I mentioned, this is a new program for them as well. So if you believe your technology is in a gray area, I encourage you to start working on an application, get back in touch with me, and I can follow up on more details about eligibility. Does the applicant need to be a U.S. citizen to get the award? No, you do not need to be a U.S. citizen. There's no restriction on citizenship, but rather just the location of the development of the research. So that must be occurring in the U.S. to be eligible. Who will judge the semifinals, the finals, Eli Lilly, or Nucleate? So the initial round of application reviews will be done by a selection of leadership from Nucleate. So we'll be reviewing these applications internally. The semifinalists that then travel to Lilly and are pitching at Lilly will be judged. The exact judging mechanism at the event is to be determined. But there will be potentially external stakeholders there outside of Lilly, relevant to the Indianapolis biotech research ecosystem that will be there to help us judge. But Lilly specifically will not be judging the applications. Participant cannot be current healthcare provider, but I should say Lilly will be looking at your science in depth. The semifinalists that are selected and get to travel to Lilly, you'll have an opportunity to discuss your science in depth with the Lilly scientists, bounce questions off of them, as well as discuss business plans and sort of partnership strategies with Lilly representatives there. Participants cannot be current healthcare provider. What if your team's medical director is a practicing clinician? So that's a great question. Off the bat, I am not sure that you would then be eligible for the financial award. But once again, that is something I can clarify with Lilly. These are a set of guidelines that are new to them as well. So I should also note that for these questions, any of these questions that I'm saying that I'll get back to you, we are also taking down your names and taking down these questions. So we will be absolutely sure we have your emails from the sign up to follow up with you with more specifics on these questions. What are the criteria for judging the semifinals? So the exact criteria are not set yet, but in general, there will be an aspect of the actual science and the strength of the proposal, technology, and checkpoints that you've hit with your technology thus far, as well as your sort of development of a business plan. And I think crucially, what your plan would be to utilize this $100,000 award from Lilly. How are you going to make best use of $100,000 to take your technology to that next checkpoint? And then, of course, at the actual final event, there will be the aspect of your presence on stage pitching as well. Regarding the healthcare provider role, can we have a healthcare provider on our advisory board? Once again, another great question, and I unfortunately can't give you a firm answer on that yet because I don't want to tell you a firm no and reach out to Lilly and have them say, no, actually, if it's an advisory board member, it's okay. So I'll note down your name and email, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can on that question. Thank you for that one, though. Victoria, did you have another question, or was that still just your hand up from before? Oh, it looks like just from before. And yes, Jared, so the situation with Immunoscope is a healthcare provider on your advisory board?
Yes. We were wondering if we can have a healthcare member on the advisory board.
Okay.
Or, I mean, or anyone on the team, I guess, for that matter. Like, for example, the lead on the team does not have a clinical background, but I think maybe one person on the team might have a nursing background.
Okay. I believe education background is definitely not a restriction. I think it's about their current being a current provider. But yes, I will definitely follow up with more specific information as to.
Thanks. Yeah. And I imagine a lot of teams.
No, I was reading another question in the chat, but yes, we will follow up on that.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of teams fall in the same bucket where there's someone who has clinical training. They may not be a current practicing it, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I should also say that we're going to not just note these questions and give direct emails altogether, but we're going to take essentially all these questions, provide answers for them, and incorporate them into our frequently asked question document that then we can send around. So we'll provide all these answers to everyone here in attendance. What if one member is a scientific researcher at a public institution that qualifies as a healthcare provider? No, I don't believe so, unless they're currently practicing medicine. I don't believe being a researcher at a public institution would count. As I mentioned earlier, if our project is focusing on cancer treatment, but more related to genetic medicine solutions, would it still be considered or be at a disadvantage? So I definitely encourage you to still apply. That one sounds like it may be in a gray area, but from my interpretation of what Lilly expressed interest in for this challenge is that they were interested potentially in delivery technology. So if your technology is in some way related to delivery of a cancer therapeutic, they may still be interested, as that could then potentially be a genetic medicine solution. So once again, it's going to probably depend on the way that you present the technology in your application. But I definitely I wouldn't throw out the idea of applying just because your technology is in some way related to cancer treatment. Are diagnostics excluded? No, they're not explicitly excluded by Lilly in any way. So if it is a diagnostic in some way related to genetic medicine, I definitely encourage you to apply. All right. Well, at this point, if anyone has any other questions, definitely feel free to either throw it in the chat or also just unmute yourself and ask. Looks like another question here from Jared. The specific disease categories that Lilly wants to focus on. So that is something I can potentially reach out to Lilly to inquire about, although I'm not sure the extent to which they are going to disclose their specific interests in disease categories. That might be starting to get into the category of information that they are not willing to share in terms of strategy. But I'll note that and include that on our follow-up. Question from Casey. They did not mention specifically any types of delivery technologies they're interested in, but if it is a delivery technology, definitely encourage you to apply. That was brought up a couple times in their interest, although they weren't specific. So, yep. All right, well, that is definitely all I have in terms of prepared information. And it looks like we hit quite a few good questions here. So as I mentioned before, we'll make sure to compile all the questions, which I said that I'll have to get back to you with more information. After I get in touch with Lilly and work through these questions, we'll put them together in a document and share it with everyone here in attendance today. So I apologize in advance if that isn't a super speedy turnaround. Of course, Lilly's a massive organization in and of themselves, but I'll work as quick as I can to get this information together for everyone. So thank you for coming out and thank you for your interest in this program. We're extremely excited to be working very closely with one of our platinum sponsorships to offer this opportunity to trainees. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you, everyone.